Why I'm quitting buy-to-let property, part 2. I'm going to give you an update here. Charles Kelly Money Tips. I got such an overwhelming response to my last video, why I'm quitting buy-to-let property, that I wanted to sort of clarify a few things and give a bit of an update. And what amazed me is how many comments I got. I mean, I've got hundreds and hundreds of comments, and a lot of the comments were positive. Some, you obviously get some negative, calling landlords parasites and all that sort of stuff. But a lot of them were from actual landlords who've had experience. One here said the authorities have declared war on landlords, good and bad. You can see here that this is the actual comment here. But do nothing to provide houses themselves. So they're declaring war on private landlords, but they're doing bugger all to build properties and sort things out. Another one said he's going to leave the UK, not really worth doing business in the UK. Another one said here, I think it's Terry, I understand your frustration. I had a tenant who wouldn't pay through the lockdown. That's a long time, and then it took me 12 months to evict him. He wrecked the place. It cost me £20,000 overall, so he's lost rent, all the eviction costs, and all the damage. Another property, the tenant switched the dehumidification system off and complained when mold appeared. I had to pay for redecoration. I've had enough, basically, they're saying. So a lot of people here. Another one here from looks like Mark. My wife and I started being landlords in 1996, had 60 properties at our highest, and below 40 now, sold 8 in the last 2 years, with only one going. So they're all looking to this. They said they could see a 1970s dump of houses, couldn't get planning permission for something. It's just sort of fed up, selling their portfolio over the next few years, depending on how interest rates drop, giving up on this country and renting, retiring to somewhere warm and living off our proceeds. Well, that's good luck to them. They've worked hard since 1996. I've had enough of 90% of tenants are lovely and friendly, but 10% are really social problems and have ruined the job I've enjoyed for 30 years. So that's a lot of that sort of sentiment. The UK's finished, the market's finished. Someone said, what else can you do to employ your capital income, capital appreciation, and the ability to scale? I buy through a limited company and it seems okay to me. So some people are staying with it. A lot of people are staying with it. Of course, leverage and being able to scale up is important in any business, really. The ability to borrow money. I always used to say, well, try going to your bank and saying, well, I'm thinking about starting this new business. I want to buy and sell shares on the stock market. Will you lend me the money? And what's the security? Oh, well, that would be the shares that I'm buying. So if I buy £200,000 worth of Apple shares, you can hold them and lend me 80%. Would they do it? Of course they're going to laugh you out the place. They'll say it's too risky. But at the same time, they would want to sell you a pension scheme invested in those sort of same shares, S&P 500, FT 100, but they think it's too risky themselves to hold as security. Can you see the hypocrisy of it there? I used to wind them up, so, well, give me a loan to buy shares, or that's why it wasn't worth it. But leverage is important. I've also said leverage. That's getting that lever in, lifting it up, helping you lift up. And obviously a lot of landlords have used that. They can refinance, as the property value goes up, they can refinance, get it out. Now, obviously I hear tenants saying, oh, this shouldn't be allowed and that sort of thing, but it's the landlords are taking the risk. I spoke to a lot of people and I've said, look, you've got a big house here. You could easily pull some money out of that and buy another property and then another one. Oh no, I can't be bothered. I just couldn't be bothered dealing with tenants. It's too risky. I don't want to have a mortgage at my time of life. Like I'm 40, 50. There's all sorts of excuses. My parents bought one house, they paid the mortgage off, and that was it. And a lot of people have done that. But some people are a bit more adventurous, and they'll go through those hoops. And it's a risk. If you get someone who doesn't pay, you've got to carry on paying the mortgage. The lender doesn't say, oh no, don't worry. If your tenant's not paying, leave the mortgage for now. We'll come back to you. No, they'll repossess if necessary. So it takes a bit of risk. It takes a bit of balls to do it. And you've got to learn as well. And I think if you learn what you're doing, learn more about property, and you know what you're doing in property, then I think you can succeed, because there are lots of other strategies that don't involve straightforward buy to let. So we already know that a substantial landlords have left, and a substantial amount of money has exited the country. I think 10,000 millionaires left last year. We've seen lots of money move away. The richest man in the UK, Lakshmi Mittal, the steel magnate, he's left the UK. He had a big house in Palace Gardens near Princess Diana's old house, Kensington Palace. A beautiful £50 million house. I think he's left the UK. He might come back if the tax regime changed for non-doms and that sort of thing. But a lot of people might say good riddance to him, let's shut the door on your way out, that sort of thing. But this guy has employed tens of thousands of people in the UK. He's paid millions in tax in the UK. Even if you don't count his businesses, these billionaires employ a lot of people in their household, and those people will be sad to see him go. And what's the point of getting rid of people like that? Because the amount of money he's paid in tax it would take 100,000 ordinary basic minimum wage workers to pay that amount of tax to make up one person's tax. So you imagine if you multiply that over the billionaires, the multimillionaires, and all these people that are leaving the UK, taking their money with them. It's crazy, and this is, I think, is what Labour don't understand. Billions is going to be lost. Jobs will be affected because of the jobs tax, and I think Labour and a lot of socialists in general don't realise that businesses create wealth, not governments. Governments put in place the infrastructure, the school system, the healthcare system, and we pay for that in our taxes. But even then they're failing to get enough people out there who are qualified to do the right things. A lot of people are leaving school illiterate, not able to read and write. Most of those end up in prison, and so they are kind of failing us, I think. So that's all they have to do, and they have to just let the market and the businesses create the jobs. Obviously, sometimes with government help, government support, keeping taxes low, creating some tax-free incentives for them, then the economy will grow. But if you just tax and hammer the rich and hammer the oil companies, they'll just walk away and go somewhere else where they can make money. That's what they're doing. They're there to make money, but providing a service. And if they're not making money, they have to, according to their shareholders and the people that they employ and support, they have to find some other way of making money. We've already seen manufacturing, some of which has moved to places like Ireland. Some will go to other countries because of the job tax, the amount of corporation tax. The job tax, by the way, is the extra national insurance on employers, but there's also the other taxes like higher corporation tax, the amount of VAT and that sort of thing. It's stifling the economy, and Labour just don't seem to get it. And this comes at a time when we're seeing a lot of jobs already leaving the UK to go abroad, to be outsourced. I spoke to a firm of accountants. They said they're not hiring in the UK. They're hiring all their staff in India. They do the same accountancy exams. They've got a back office system there, so they can do most of the work there. They wouldn't hire anybody in the UK until things change. And then we've got AI as well. We've got AI coming in, which will replace a lot of jobs. So the last thing you need is for unemployment to go up, which is going up at the moment. We've seen, I think, 100,000 more people unemployed. Lots of companies not hiring. And this is not just my anecdotal evidence. This is based on facts of recruitment companies slowing down their hiring. And so businesses create wealth, and they've got to understand, Labour, that businesses create jobs, and if you tax the jobs, they'll just dissipate. The wealthy already pay more tax than the poor, and that's a fact. The top 20% of the wealthy pay more tax than pretty much all the rest of us. And so you can't just say we'll get rid of the wealthy and all the others will make up that tax. It just doesn't happen. It's not going to happen. So when the wealthy leave, it's the middle classes in particular that get really stung. So now the middle classes will be pushed into higher rates of tax. They'll have all sorts of benefits, tax benefits cut, pensions and that sort of thing. And the poor will pay more, or they'll suffer by having less benefits, because the money's not there, the money is not there. And everybody will be poorer as a result of these sorts of policies. Renters' rights, more employment rights. There's loads of employment rights at the moment. you can barely sort of fire somebody without getting accused of something, taken to a tribunal. But of course, Labour have to listen to their paymasters, the unions, and that's who fund the Labour Party. So it's the unions that call the shots, unfortunately, and they're the ones pulling the strings. And this is why I think Keir Starmer has got so many idiots in his cabinet, like Angela Rayner and people like that, and the employment minister. They can barely string a sentence together. And David Lammy and people like, I'm sure it's to do with the unions. I'm sure the unions have put some left-wingers in the cabinet, and he's pushed away some of the brighter people that are more reasonable in their views, more middle ground. So we'll all suffer, and I've seen it before. Even in my short life, I've seen this happen. I'm thinking back to the 70s when I was at school. I saw strikes all the time, unions demanding 20% pay rises. The dustmen were on strike like they are in Birmingham. The miners were on strike. The train drivers were on strike. It was this winter of discontent, and we could see a summer of discontent this year. So I've seen it all before, and I saw when they put up taxes to the highest rate of 98%. A lot of musicians, I think the story was the Rolling Stones had to leave. They were going bankrupt. They were literally running out of money. So they left to go to France. They recorded Exile on Main Street, just a little bit of Stones news here, one of my favourite bands. And then they built up their wealth again. And now they're very smart with tax. If they own a property here, it's owned for an offshore company, because they've been through this before. And I saw the brain drain of lots of people, lots of businesses leaving the UK. They were going to America, they were going to Australia, and that's what's happening today. If a nurse or something goes to Australia now, they can double their salary. Of course, they've got to pay tax there as well. They've got quite a high tax rate, but there's lots of places to go, and we're definitely seeing that there. So that was a bit of an update. I want to clarify something. I'm getting out of buy-to-let property, but I'm not getting out of property, right? I'm just getting out of that standard model of buy-to-let, get a mortgage, put a tenant in there on an AST for 12 months, and then they maybe renew it or they go somewhere else. And when you want the property back, you serve a Section 21 notice. Or if the tenant's not paying, you serve a Section 21 notice. It takes 2 or 3 months to get them out. That is all changing. So I'm getting out of that system, which is now going to be part of the new Labour government socialist republic that we're going to see for the next few years. We've also had already had a semi-socialist republic under the Tories, and people that they brought in the Renters Reform Bill, which didn't quite get through. So now Labour have ramped it up to the Renters Rights Bill. And you can check it out in my last video. But this is why we've got to change. Businesses have to adapt, or they just die. They get swallowed up. So there are alternative property strategies, and I'm using some of them. One is leasing your property. So you give your property to a council, a housing association, or another sort of provider that provides. It could be, among other things, it could be for vulnerable adults. It could be for people coming out of prison. It could be for disabled people. It could be for supported living, or it could be even those dreaded asylum seekers. Heaven forbid. But whatever it is, there's need for it, and you give the houses to those providers, and some of them are like Serco, Mears, that sort of thing. There are lots of others around the country. I suggest you use a property sourcing. I used a property sourcing agent. It was very good. He found the property for me. He got it renovated with his contacts. I paid for it, of course, and then he marries up you to the leasing company, and of course he charges a fee. So if you want any more details about that, I can pass you on his details. So that worked out, and then you get a 5-year lease, guaranteed rent, no repairs. They give the property back in the same state you've given it to them. You have to give it to them in a good state. You can't just give them any old thing. You might have to refurbish it. Even if you've got an existing property, you might have to sort of do a bit of work on it to bring it up to their particular standards. But then you get 5 years guaranteed rent, and you don't have any of this agent fees, renewing each year. Tenant leaves, you have to pay another fee to get another tenant. You have voids and that sort of. You don't get that. Of course, there's a break clause in the lease. They could walk away if things don't work out. But at least you've got peace of mind. You have to provide the building's insurance and some sort of coverage against the boiler. So I have a £50 a month British Gas landlords thing. Do an annual safety check and that sort of thing. So there are a few little fees and that sort of thing, but in general I'm getting a reasonable rent and no hassle. So there are other strategies. There's rent to rent. If you've got no money, you want to get into property, you could rent a property, lease it from somebody, and then create a new strategy, maybe a HMO strategy, to rent it out at a higher price. People are now making a lot of money with that. They come in, some of them, from Europe, they've come in, they've got no money, and they've employed this strategy. Others have just gone into it in a big way, a professional way, and they've managed to start making cash flow, sometimes 5, 10, 15, 20,000 a month cash flow from this business. It is a business, it's not a part-time hobby. Furnished holiday lets is another one where you've got the Airbnbs, the booking.coms, holiday lets, that sort of thing. You could do that as well. And there are people doing rent to rent for that as well. You could rent your property to that sort of company that does holiday lets. So your property is looked after, and they take 25% of the rent or whatever, and they do everything for you. So there are lots of strategies, and your properties don't have to be in a holiday village in Devon or something. It could be anywhere. It could be holiday lets in a city, holiday lets for near a station or something. And other things, BRR, buy, refurbish and refinance using other people's money. So look, there are many strategies out there. You don't have to walk away from property. A lot of people are saying the UK is finished, property market's finished. I don't believe that, because I think there will still be population increases. People will still need somewhere to live. So there are many more strategies, but the important thing is you study and learn from experts who've been there and done it before you. So if you'd like to find out more about that, click on the link below, and we'll put you in touch with a property. It's not my company, it's a property company that I've used, property training company. They're very good. I found I learned a lot from them, and they've got very good trainers. They do some free kind of webinars, seminars, free events where you can go along and meet other people just like you. And then if you like their courses, you can go in for one of the paid courses. If you don't, you go home and take up do what you like. So there you go. Thanks for that. I thought I'd give that a quick update. Thanks for listening, and good luck with your property journey. And for landlords who are sticking with it, good luck to you. I hope it works out well. For landlords who are getting out, I hope you find something else to do with your money or with your life. But answering phone calls on a Friday night to say my boiler's broken down will not be one of them, I guess. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm currently away at the moment. I'm exploring other parts of the world with a view to moving to Asia. So that's what I'm up to at the moment. And that's why you've got a different background here. But it's lovely and sunny here, and great, cheap cost of living, and things are going well. Thank you very much. Bye for now.